Hey everyone, this is Danish Syed, user interface artist at NetherRealm Studios, and I thought it might be interesting to take a look at what went into the creation of the player select screen for Injustice: Gods Among Us. The player select screen is really the centerpiece of any fighting game interface. It's the most commonly accessed, highest traffic screen in the game. It must present all the characters clearly and efficiently, and must be easy to understand and navigate. If we look back at the history of fighting games, we can quickly identify the key components that are present in nearly every select screen. We are presented with a grid of cells containing portraits of all the characters, presented either horizontally across the bottom or somewhere in the center. Then there are the character renders, a close-up or sometimes full-body view of the character the player is currently highlighting. Because the cells present a lot of characters at once, they are usually smaller thumbnails, so the renders let the player see a nice detailed representation of the character, something they might not get from the portraits. With very few exceptions, these cells are small and square. Basically, all you're going to get is a headshot. Now with Injustice, we knew we would be dealing with superheroes who are often defined by their costumes, so it seemed like a waste to only feature their faces. You may be able to tell that this is Superman, but seeing the iconic S on his chest is a much more powerful image. Now if you apply this to a large cast of characters, you end up with a visually distinct and striking roster. Next was the layout of the cells and their relation to the character renders. We wanted to bring the characters closer together to build tension, previewing the fight that's about to happen. This involved splitting the grid in half. The delineation was easy. Heroes on the left, villains on the right. Seeing each side representing good and evil facing off in this way had the potential to add more drama to the scene. So now we have the general idea, but we have to finalize the layout. We sketched out a few different shapes to start. Some of these would have never worked, but it was a useful exercise to narrow down our options. We finally landed on the V shape for a few reasons. It created an interesting frame for the characters in the middle, and the spaces at the edges for the character name and possibly even some extra themed graphics, and the V shape hinted at the idea of a versus match, and finally it was a shape we hadn't really seen before in a select screen. There was some experimentation to try different numbers of rows and columns. Eventually we decided on 3 columns of 4 on each side. So this is what we get. Now if we replace all the placeholder art with final art, we get a screen that's starting to look pretty good, but there's still a little more to do. The characters squared off in the middle look cool, but it's a little too static. Also, another problem. If both players pick the same character, we end up with a perfectly mirrored scene that looks awkward. One way to address both issues is to give the players different positions and asymmetrical poses. So we move Green Arrow up, change his pose, and now we have an interesting scene. Another advantage of this is each character has a unique pose that takes on a different quality when paired with different opponents. Here we see Green Arrow on the left attacking and the one on the right reacting. Swap him out with Deathstroke, and now you see both characters have their weapons drawn in a sort of standoff. Swap Green Arrow out with Superman, and now it looks like Superman is deflecting bullets. It creates a lot of interesting combinations. Next we have the background. A lot of games have a simple abstract background as to not interfere with the characters, but with this scene it made sense to put the characters in context, placed in the actual stage they'd be fighting in. This decision would then dictate the design of subsequent screens, all the way to the gameplay. Finally we have the space in the corners. Part of the reason we wanted to go with the V design was for this space. It allowed us the opportunity to create some cool custom graphics and animation themed to each character. We animated one for every single character in the game, as well as any downloadable characters going forward. One of our other main design goals was to make the entire user experience as fluid and seamless as possible, from the select screen all the way to the fight. The idea to use the stage as the backdrop factored heavily into this. As the player enters the select screen, the background image is chosen at random from nearly 30 stages, adding to the visual variety of the screen. After the players have chosen their characters, the background stays as we move into the arena select screen, where the cursor is already at the randomly chosen stage. This way the player has the option to change the stage, but if not, he can button through without having to think about it. The background is then passed to the load screen, where we see the Injustice logo and the load bar. Finally, it fades seamlessly into the establishing shot for the arena and into the character intros. And here's the final select screen. You can see all the pieces fitting together, the dynamic character poses against a real backdrop, the tall portraits, the graphic art, all working together to create a cool looking and functional screen. So that's it. Hopefully you found this interesting. Thanks for watching.